Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to Cilinix Crypto. I hope you're all doing great and hope you're having a great start of the week so far. And welcome to this new video right here on Bitcoin. We're going to do a full update here. There's some fundamentals we need to talk about. No fundamental. Well, I mean, there's something going on which I do think you need to be aware of. So we'll talk about that. But obviously, what I want to start off with is tell you again that we have inflation rates and CPI data coming out today. I've said that since Saturday, so hopefully all of you by now know. But that is coming out at 12:30 UTC, right? So it's where I live. It's UTC +2, and it's at 2:30. I know a lot of you are UTC +2 as well, but that matters, right? I mean, the CPI and inflation rate data. I think that's one of the reasons why price is pulling back slightly here. But the result of that will also matter. Now, I'll try to put out a middle of the day market update as soon as I can afterwards, right? Because look, ultimately, long term, we need inflation rate to be lower, but short term, even a higher, a higher reading will most likely be bearish. But even a lower than expected reading can still push prices down lower, right? I mean, very often, just to talk about that briefly here, and hopefully you don't hear that sound. But sometimes what happens is that if you get positive data like that, that's also the ideal moment for whales and big traders to sell off their positions, right? So that is something to be a little bit fearful about, that, you know, we want the CPI and inflation rate data to be lower, but a lower than expected data reading doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to pump up higher. Because right now, what you can also see with the technicals, and that's the coffee machine on the background, amazing noises everywhere. But what you can see right now technically is that yesterday what we spoke about is that the main level that we need to hold was this gray area right here. And we held that initially, right, between 119 and 120,000. We held that initially, but we never really got a strong reaction from that. And you can see that over the course of the Asian session, which yesterday was very, very bullish. This morning it was less so. We dropped down below that, right? So we dropped down below that, and we spoke about, all right, well, then the next target is probably 117.5. Got a very weak reaction there. We did get a decent reaction here on the 7-day rolling VWAP, but ultimately on the lower timeframes here, we are bearish, which in general was definitely something we spoke about, especially yesterday in the middle of the day market update. But it also means that right now on the lower timeframes on Bitcoin, I have to be bearish. On the higher timeframes, I have to be bullish, right? Because we still got an amazing touch right here. But the thing is that we're most likely going to fill these imbalances, and I would say that the last level that we can hold and still make new all-time highs is very, very close. I would say that's this area right here, maybe down to 114,000. But preferably the 7-day rolling VWAP. Like if we really want to go for new all-time highs above 123,000, which I think at this point of time is unlikely, since we also got such a weak reaction at the previous balance we had right here. So I'm a little bit skeptical about that, to be fair, at this point of time. But if we still want to do something like that, we need to hold the 7-day rolling VWAP, or we need to drop down a little bit lower towards this level at 114 and then reclaim the 7-day rolling VWAP. Then we can also still make new all-time highs. But I think it's safe to say that at this point in time, I think that's unlikely, even though even if we get lower than expected readings on the inflation rate data. I think it's unlikely, because what we can also see is that, you know, the general financial markets are actually quite stable. But we're starting to enter a Coinbase Bitcoin discount here and there, which we haven't seen since the beginning of June. So that's quite relevant. That is something definitely to be aware of, and also something to be a little bit cautious about. So yeah, that's why I think a local top has been reached. Coinbase whales, Coinbase traders are selling. I do think we can remain relatively stable. But we need to hold that 7-day rolling VWAP. We need to get a very strong reaction there this morning. If we don't, we're going to drop down into 114,000. And like I said, from 114,000, we can still rally up higher if we reclaim the 7-day rolling VWAP. But I would say it's more likely that if we drop down there, that we're also going to fill that imbalance down to 112,000, which I know is quite extreme, and we're definitely not there yet. But it is a possibility, and it is a scenario that I think you need to be aware of. So what I expect is that the 7-day rolling VWAP will hold. I expect stability, but if we do not get some sort of a bullish breakout, if we do not see a return of momentum, or if the inflation rate data is higher than expected, which we're very dependent on that, we're going to drop down into 114. find support there, but probably also drop down into 112 after. But I'll keep you updated on that. For now, at least, that's what I think you need to know. So for now, thank you for watching. Take care and bye.